I call the regular meeting of the Menifee City Council to order for the purpose of closed session. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers on the closed session items?
No, Your Honor.
Hearing none, we are adjourned to closed session. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are reconvened from closed session. Mr. Melching, do we have anything to report out?
Yes, just briefly, Mr. Mayor, with regard to the items pursuant to Section 54956.9 of the Government Code, there was no reportable action. Likewise, that was with regard to the items under 54956.9 D2. The other two items which are listed there, the Cave matter and the Diamond Brothers matter, the City Council received updates and gave direction. However, there's no other reportable action on those items. And finally, with respect to the real property negotiation, the City Council gave direction with regard to the price and terms in connection with that real property transaction.
Thank you, Mr. Melching. Appreciate that. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilmember August. Councilmember Leesmeyer. Mayor Pro Tem Denver. Mayor Mann.
Here.
Thank you.
And with that, we have words of inspiration from Pastor Tim Thompson, Vinea Church. Pastor.
If everyone would bow their head with me and let's pray together. Father, we thank you for this evening. We thank you for your presence in this place. And tonight, Lord, we want to just remember all the things that are going on here in the city. Such a busy city now. It's just been a great blessing for all of us to see the city grow and become what it is today. And Lord, we see your hand of provision for this city. And so continue to bless the city, Lord. We pray for all the men and women who teach our children in this city. We pray for all the men and women who uphold the law in this city, and we're so grateful for them. Thank you so much for the fire department and all the emergency services that we have here, Lord. Bless them as they help keep us safe in this city. And Lord, tonight, we want to recognize once again your presence and thank you for your leading as we have so many leaders here tonight. Lord, I pray that you would bless them with your spirit, bless them with your wisdom as they make decisions for this city. Lord, we have entrusted them with this city, and Lord, what a great honor and what a great responsibility that is that you've given them. And so bless them with your wisdom. And tonight, Lord, we want to recognize also that you are a God of order. And as we would follow after you, I pray that we would be people of order. And so, Lord, help us to be all that you have called us to be. We pray these things together in the name of the Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Tim. Councilmember Leesmeyer, would you lead us in the pledge?
Certainly. Please place your right hand over your heart. Ready to begin.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. And gentlemen, if we have a presentation up front tonight, if you join me up front, please. Let's go that way. Thank you very much. Tonight we have the privilege and honor of recognizing some special people in the city tonight, and specifically one person specifically, who is the commissioner of the Menifee Senior Softball League. And Mr. Ed Husted and the Menifee Softball League, would you please come join us up here front and center? While we're getting folks up here, I just want to share, and now Mr. August is going to share a few things in a moment, but there's a lot of veterans in the room tonight, but Ed is a World War II veteran. As you can proudly see him displaying his ball cap here tonight. Sir, we're grateful for your service, grateful for you defending this great nation, grateful for you defending the right of people to come and speak and share their thoughts with government, and we just want to say thank you very much for being part of the greatest generation. Welcome to Menifee City Hall. So we have a proclamation. I'm going to go ahead and read this right now. The City of Menifee proclamation. Whereas the City of Menifee is a community that includes a large number of older Americans aged 60 and older, and the league, the Menifee Senior Softball League, has fostered camaraderie among the many seniors who have participated, and each competition brought out the memories of days past, and each team featured all skill levels. Men who were supportive of each other and respect grew from those competitions, causing the outcome to be the sort of league that Ed Husted wanted and worked towards, and his vision of a structured competition that had a focus on social and physical benefits has come to life in the Menifee Senior Softball League. And the league is respected in the region, drawing players from as far away as Fallbrook and Riverside to participate, and Ed Husted's work will continue to be appreciated in the city, and the City Council of Menifee thanks him for the dedication, tireless efforts, and heart he has put into the creation of this league. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Menifee honors Ed Husted for this service to his community and thanks him for allowing Menifee to take part in the great program known as the Menifee Senior Softball League, approved this 18th day of February, 2015. Congratulations, sir. And Mr. August.
I want to take the opportunity to thank Bob Thurman for making this night possible for Ed. I do want to thank City Attorney Kathy Bennett for working on the agenda, working also on the citation, and also working for seating arrangements for all the Ed's family and friends here tonight. So I have a couple words I want to share, and go ahead and read them. So I'll start like this. Ed, for you and wife Linda, this special recognition by the city is long overdue, and I'm extremely grateful and honored to be a part of it. And for the players and families who are here tonight in attendance, it's good to see all of you. And I can tell you, in my new job, not much has changed. I'm still hitting below average and making more errors than ever. But tonight, and being here to share this with all of you and Ed's family, it's my opportunity to hit a home run. Ed, as you know, I played in the Menifee Soft League for 13 years. You and I played on the same team for many years. And I have the scars to show it. I have the broken bones. I spent time in the hospital, and I've got many scars because of your league. Your league is no bargain to Medicare, let me tell you. Now, for everybody in the audience and everybody up here already knows that, I've never been associated with a better group of guys or a person, a better person or a finer gentleman than you. Under your leadership, the Menifee Softball League is much more than just a softball league, providing competition and exercise. It's really, for many, evolved into a fraternity of true brothers, supporting and caring for one another, not only on the field, but off the field and over the years, always sharing with and including the great wives of your league and the close friends, and always in camaraderie and real sincerity. So I want to thank all the wives of the league as well. Ed, the league over the years has gone through some challenging times, as you know. But in your perseverance and leadership, it has remained your vision that all are welcome, all will play, all the time. Ed, I truly want to thank you, and I know I can speak for the city as well, for creating this wonderful event and outlet for senior men, not only in the city of Menifee, but in the area as well. It's not just a softball league, but for me, it's been a family. And as long as it lasts, you will always be the you'll always be the father of it, the Menifee Senior Softball League. So thank you very much.
I can't tell you how proud and how happy I am that after months of work with Greg and everything, that all this has come together tonight, okay? There's not a person that is more well-deserved than Mr. Hudstead, okay? I was going to say a lot more, but I think Greg said that just as well as can be said, and I can't add anything to that. So, thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations again. Thank you, everybody. Good job.
Thank you, sir. I'm at Hughes Head's daughter, and I want to tell you how much I appreciate that.
Oh, you're very welcome.
That he's not only a World War II veteran, he's a Korean War
Oh, that's
veteran
awesome.
as well.
Yeah, I said, Greg's the one that made sure this thing happened. You're welcome. While we're waiting for our guests to depart, Mr. Johnson, I believe you have an introduction that you'd like to make tonight.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I'd like to welcome Bob Brady as our interim community development director. And it's his first night on the dais with us. Thanks, Bob, for pinch hitting for us for a little while we seek our next director.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. We are glad to have you up on the dais, even though you come from another city from time ago. We're happy to have you here, Bob. On to our next presentation. We have a presentation from the Western Riverside Council of Governments regarding Southern California Edison Streetlight Program, and I believe we have the Executive Director, Rick Bishop, as well as the Program Manager for this is going to give us a presentation.
Thank you very much, Mayor, members of the council, staff, and members of the audience. My name is Rick Bishop. I'm the Executive Director of the Western Riverside Council of Governments, also known as WRCOG. And it's been a while since I've been here. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. First of all, I want to thank all of you for participating in the forum that is WRCOG. Mayor Pro Tem Denver has been your representative to our organization for a few years. We really appreciate his insight and his input and his consistency, as well as all of the staff. And I think you know that all of the recommendations that ultimately come to the executive committee are forged through all of our committees, public works directors, planning directors, city managers. So we're very proud of the fact that by the time recommendations come your way, they've been vetted by your own staff and throughout the region. Normally, I like to come about once a year and make a presentation on the various activities that WRCOG is up to. You'll be glad to know that I'm not here to do that tonight. Perhaps I can work with your staff, Mr. Mayor, and we can schedule a meeting of that nature in the future. What I wanted to talk about tonight, and I'll introduce Tyler with your permission, is a really exciting program that we're just starting to undertake. It has to do with streetlights, not a real exciting topic, but the idea behind this program is to purchase basically all the streetlights in the Western Riverside County subregion, then operate them under a single contract through WRCOG. And we think there's significant savings that can come to the local jurisdictions in doing so. We think just on a back of the napkin figure, we think that the energy savings that comes from a program like this amounts to $4 or $5 million a year. So a significant amount of money to the city of Menifee. So with that, Mr. Mayor, and your permission, I'd like to introduce Tyler Masters. Tyler's the staff analyst who's kind of heading up this program, and he'll kind of run you through what we're up to on this particular subject.
Let's do it.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Tyler Masters again, Energy Staff Analyst at the Western Riverside Council of Governments, WRCOG. And I'm here to present a little bit of information on this streetlight program, this regional streetlight program. And Rick did a great job of giving you an overall introduction into the program. As he had mentioned, the City of Menifee has identified that the Southern California Edison utility cost for streetlights does rate at a large cost to the jurisdictions, and that a regional approach to streetlight acquisition can bring cost savings and economies of scale to the region. So what we're going to be talking a little bit about today is the types of streetlights, the streetlight costs in the subregion, cost effectiveness of of moving from, of purchasing streetlights from Southern California Edison and making them jurisdiction owned and operated, as well as some additional LED benefits, the purchasing process, and if a regional approach makes sense to this, as well as a timeline. So the types of streetlights, there are two. The first is LS1, which is Southern California owned and operated streetlights. I would like to note that this is under a higher rate. The city does pay more for these because you're paying for operations and maintenance. The majority of the streetlights in the region falls under this category of Edison owned and operated streetlights. The other is the opposite, is jurisdiction owned and operated streetlights. And while the rate is drastically lower, there are not a lot currently in the region. So this is the streetlight costs in the subregion, kind of showing a good amount. As you can see in the middle there, the city of Menifee, from some of the data we received from Southern California Edison, we were able to note that there is a little under $1 million cost in 2012 for these Edison-owned streetlights. And this cost savings table really shows that a city of 6,000, which is very close to the city of Menifee, with data again received from Edison, you have about 6,200 poles, and plugging in those numbers to both rates, you can see that at the Edison-owned rate, there is a price of about $70,000 a month, and then that does transition into a yearly savings for the city of Menifee for a little under $500,000 when purchasing and retrofitting at a regional level these streetlights. There are additional savings that are realized when retrofitting to LEDs. Some of these benefits include for your public safety folks, LEDs increase visibility. For public works folks, there's much less maintenance involved in them, and as well as greenhouse gas emissions reductions for city goals. This slide essentially represents two items. The first is the cost effectiveness of purchasing and retrofitting streetlights, and the second being that if remaining status quo, that historical data has shown that over the past 15 years there has been a 50% increase in these rates, and it is estimated to increase again 50% in the next 15 years. So this is a little bit of the purchasing process from Southern California Edison. However, before all of this purchase processing occurs, I'd like to talk a little bit about where we currently are. And the current status is a regional inventory. We're working with all of our cities in doing this regional inventory, because before the purchasing process can begin with Southern California Edison, it is important to understand that what the current inventory of streetlights in your city is. It is kind of like walking into Costco and to buy some chairs and not knowing if that package has 10 or 110 chairs in it. So that's where we currently are in this process. We need to identify that number of chairs we're purchasing. And this timeline kind of represents, after that inventory, the remainder of those steps. And with this, that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Can you go back to the slide with the two different streetlights?
Yes.
I'm assuming, one more forward. There. I'm assuming that the LED light's on the left, the brighter one,
Mm-hmm.
and the old yellow one is what I think we have most of those in the city, don't we?
We do, interestingly enough, and I think Tyler and Rick can attest to this. Edison does provide grants to do LED retrofits. We were able to do it on our signs, but not on our street lights. They typically don't like to do LED retrofits on their own lights. They'll also help with changing the light bulbs inside city facilities, and there are grants available. But as far as the street lights that they own, that they charge for, the LED is not seen as valuable to them.
Of course not.
And so I think that's one of the impetuses for this program is that I think he clearly stated on the other page it's going to be half as much per month in total cost.
And brighter.
And if you multiply that over the numbers of jurisdictions, and of course brighter and more publicly safe.
Is there an upfront fee? It looks like there is an upfront fee for this activity.
For purchasing from Southern California Edison, yes, there will be provided, starting into the purchasing process, Edison will provide a not-to-exceed price.
And it's like $500,000?
It's, for cities that have moved forward with the process, it's upwards of, for cities of a similar size, $5 to $6 million.
$5 to $6 million we're coming up with to put in LED lights?
No, I think what you're talking about is if we were to purchase them on our own, correct?
Correct.
If we were to purchase the lights on our own, it would be $5 to $6 million out of our pocket, and then we would spend money to retrofit the lights. So by joining together with WRCOG and other regional areas, the dollar amount goes very, very low, and it's significant for us to be part of a program that would pay for our own lights over time, correct?
That's correct. We're
So
hoping that a regional, sorry,
No, go ahead.
a regional approach would really bring economies of scale and hopefully bring down that Costco-style buying price.
And I think that's what Mayor Pro Tem Denver's question actually was what is the buy-in for a city that belongs to WRCOG to participate in this program as it's presently being staffed out?
Just to begin the process?
No, for us to be part of that, Rob.
Tyler, I thought I saw one of your slides of the initial $10,000 buy-in. Is that correct, Rick?
Yeah. So the initial buy-in to get things moving that a jurisdiction would typically undertake is about a $10,000 cost. That's a fee that they would pay directly to Southern California Edison, and that's what initiates the process. But WRCOG is taking that on behalf of the jurisdictions.
That's it.
Ultimately, when we get to the point of purchasing, if we're able to pull this all together, there will be no cost to the jurisdiction. There will be no upfront money from the jurisdiction standpoint. WRCOG will do all the purchasing, all the retrofits, and then we'll recoup that over a long period of time through administration of the program. And doing so at this regional level, we can achieve tremendous cost savings and economies of scale that way.
Matt. Councilmember Leesmeyer.
Yeah, with regard to the Palomar lighting ordinance, I'm a general contractor. I've been doing a lot of upgrades like this in parking lots. Cities are pretty lenient as far as allowing that to take place. I mean, what's the county's formal stance on this? Has the county opined on, hey, we're going to get rid of the Palomar lighting ordinance, we don't care about that anymore? I mean, how does this work?
Yeah, my understanding is that that's not the intent. So when you have the brighter LEDs, we're still going to be looking to conform with the Palomar ordinance. So that's going to be an important issue for the local jurisdictions that are in this southwest portion of the county. Interestingly, though, one of the things the outgrowths of this discussion is that local jurisdictions may want to, as we retrofit the lights, they may want to have certain areas with brighter lighting than other areas. So certain residential areas you might want with less lighting, certain areas that are higher trafficked and you think are public safety issue areas you might want higher. So we're kind of interested in pursuing something along the lines where we're able to work with the local jurisdictions, or they work with us to tell us which zones they want more heavily lit than others, and then we might be able to specifically tailor programs that meet their needs.
And is there Title 24 compliance regulation with this? I mean, in a commercial application, the lights, whenever you start touching the lights nowadays with Title 24, you have to start putting them on a timer where the lights will dim at a certain time. And we obviously don't want our street lights dimming at certain hours of the night. We probably want them even brighter at 2 o'clock in the morning. But how does that work with Title 24 inside the city right away?
With Title 24 and in regards to public safety lights, arterials, and residential areas, there's no requirement in Title 24 stating that the dimming needs to be required. Southern California Edison doesn't even have a dimming rate yet for street lights for purposes of residential and arterial public safety.
It's basically exempt then. Okay.
All right.
More questions?
Any more questions? All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen, very much for your presentation. And obviously, there's some savings that can be captured, it appears. So we're going to let staff explore that with you and to have a dialogue and see where that takes us.
Certainly. And
Thank
thank
you.
you for the opportunity. We'll keep you up to date as we go along.
Thanks for coming. On to our next agenda item. Agenda item 5.3, presentation of the city's fiscal year 2013-14 comprehensive annual financial report. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Bruce Foltz, Finance Director, has the balance of the item.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I'd like to introduce Mr. Williber from our CPA firm, Rogers, Anderson, Melody, and Scott. He'll do a brief presentation on our audit opinion and talk about internal controls. Then afterwards, I'll do a brief PowerPoint presentation on the financial statements.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
Good evening.
Fellow members of the City Council. As Bruce mentioned, my name is Brad. I'm a director at RAMS. It's a lot easier to say than the whole mouthful that he said there. But I'm going to cover the opinion letter that is included in your CAFR, your Comprehensive Annual Financial Report that you should have in front of you. It's on page 1. And our opinion is expressed over the contents of this CAFR. And we have audited the CAFR in accordance with auditing standards that are generally accepted in the United States, as well as government auditing standards, which includes auditing for compliance matters as well. On page 1, we list what our responsibilities were as auditors, and on page 2, you'll find our opinion. In our opinion, we are giving what is considered in our industry is called an unmodified opinion. It's the highest level of assurance that we can provide on financial statements. Unmodified refers to the fact that there are no modifications to our opinion. So our opinion, as stated on page 2, is that the financial statements, in this case the CAFR, is presented fairly in all material respects to the financial position of the city funds as a whole. We also are extending that opinion over the required supplementary information as in relation to opinion and the supplemental information that you will find herein. And Bruce will later go over a little more detail in there, and I understand that he has already met with the Finance Committee and gone in much more detail about this document. We have also issued another letter, which you should have there. It's the Independent Auditor's Report on Internal Control over Financial Reporting and Other Compliance Matters in accordance with government auditing standards. And this is a summary here saying that we have evaluated the internal controls over financial reporting and as well as the compliance with various requirements that are applicable to a city like yours. And we don't have any material weaknesses that we are required to report to you. We didn't have anything that we discovered in the course of our audit. If there were, this is the communication that we would have given to you. So this is a good thing, saying that there's nothing that needs to be reported that you need to receive. The last letter that we are including is one that is a letter to those charged with governance, in this case the City Council. This is basically a high-level summary of the significant audit matters. In here, this letter, we talk about that there are significant estimates as part of the CAFR. That's a normal part of financial reporting, and we've identified what some of those significant estimates and disclosures are on the first and beginning of second page. Also pleased to report that there were no difficulties encountered as we worked with management throughout this process. This is a project that starts back in the early part of the summer and extends through the end of the year, covering the entire fiscal year period. As well as in stating in here that we didn't have any disagreements with management during the course of our audit as well. And if that is really it, unless there are other questions, I'll be happy to answer any of those, and I'm going to then pass it back to Bruce for his specific presentation.
Any questions from the council? Thank you, sir, for your report. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. And I just want to express our thanks to Bruce and his team here for enduring us during this time. It is a challenging auditing, can feel like a pretty invasive process as we ask for lots of documents and take a lot of their time, and they were very gracious in providing everything we needed to complete our audit.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay, City Council, I would like to present to you the details of the CAFR, the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report for fiscal year 2013-14. And I really want to concentrate on a couple areas, looking at revenues overall, looking at our major expenditures and our capital assets. And not really getting into the weeds of individual accounts, but looking at an overview, looking down. So the first slide I have here, I just want to show you an overview of our citywide revenues and expenditures. And as you can see, the general fund is our largest single fund. And when I mention fund is an individual, you can consider it an individual company, has its own set of financial statements. And as we go through these financial statements, they're presented on a consolidated basis. So the general fund will be consolidated with all the other funds that we have, such as Measure A, gas tax, and our DIF funds. So overall, general fund brought in 68% of our total revenues for the year. And when I refer to the year as the FY 2013-14, and total expenditures represented 66% for the year. Another presentation here, this is our total governmental fund revenues. It's all of our funds compiled together. We have taxes, license and permits, intergovernmental charges for services, use of money. So in the category of taxes, that represents all of our property tax, sales tax, franchise fees, and TOT tax. Under licenses, that represents our building permits and our grading permits. Under intergovernmental, that represents our Measure A and our gas tax. Charges for services, that represents our business license, and planning fees. Uses of money, that actually represents interest income that we received. Fines and forfeitures, that represents code enforcement and traffic citations. And development impact fees are fees that were charged to our developers. As you look across, I'm comparing 2014 to 13, and then a net change. You'll see two items that kind of stick out. One is the intergovernmental. It looks like a deficit, and in comparison, it is actually a deficit in the presentation. However, this was the new year for our new auditors, and also my first year here. And going through the process, we decided to reclassify some property tax revenue that had in a prior year been recorded as intergovernmental. And that included the revenues that we had received for LLMD and our county service areas. We have special assessments for those. Previously, they were recorded in intergovernmental, and this year we reported them in property tax because it does come from the county. It kind of looks like a property tax, and most other agencies do record it as taxes. And then the other category you'll see is development impact fees. It looks like we have a deficit there, or a reduction in revenue of $4.6 million. Actually, in 2013, we had received $6.6 million from Riverside County on funds that they had collected over time, and gave us a one-time payment. So that's why we show that big variance.
So if you factor that out, then if you take that $6 million out, then we'd actually would have had an increase.
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
Our next slide is a little more in detail of just strictly the general fund. We have property tax, sales tax, franchise fees, and building permits. Those four categories alone represent 90% of our total general fund revenues. And again, showing a comparison of 2014 to 2015. As you can see in all categories of the first four line items, substantial increases, which is a good sign that the city is healthy. We do show one little variance there under other. Again, the county had given us some money in 2013. There's a one-time influx of funds that we did not receive in 2014. Other major revenues, we have the gas tax and Measure A. Measure A represents the half-cent sales tax that we receive on all tangible items that are sold in Riverside County. Again, both of those are up compared to the prior year. And this is kind of a pictorial of the total governmental funds revenues as a pie chart, dividing up all of our major revenues. As you can see, property tax brings in the largest percent of revenues for us, at 31%, followed by sales tax and building permits. Those are our three primary revenue streams for the city. And then we'll dive in a little bit to expenditures. This is total-wide expenditures across all funds. The categories along the left-hand column are general government, public safety, community development, parks and recreations, engineering, capital outlay, and debt service. These are standard categories that you would see in most governmental financial statements. The public safety represents our fire, police, and animal services. The capital outlay represents all of our expenditures that we spent for the year to purchase capital assets. Some of the items that we spent for the year was the Menifee Road, the Menifee Road widening, and then the, Newport Road widening of roughly $2.3 million, and then the Menifee Road extension, which was the missing link. We spent $1.5 million for that. We also spent some money on a few vehicles. There is one item there, it looks like a reduction under Park and Recreations. That was some expenditures that we incurred in 2013 that were not reoccurring in 2014. That's why it actually shows a reduction. But, and typical from year to year, unfortunately expenditures do go up. Overall, total expenditures from 2013 to 2014 increased 26.1%. A little pictorial of the general fund, expenditures. As you can see in this, both fire and police take up the biggest portion of our general fund expenditures. Public services itself, or public safety, represents 63% of our total general fund expenditures, which equates to $16.6 million of expenditures. And so this is strictly the general fund budget to actual comparison. The middle column there is actual revenues and expenses for the year, comparing that to the budget. As you can see, for 2013-14 actual revenues for the city, we collected, this is strictly the general fund, $26.5 million compared to the budget of $25.7 million. We actually collected more than what we anticipated, which is a good sign. Expenditures, we spent $25.5 million. We have projected to spend $26.3 million. A positive variance there as well. Revenues over expenses, we were able to actually have a surplus of just over $1 million that will go back to our general fund and be set aside for reserves for future needs. Just briefly want to go over some of our capital assets. When I review financial statements of cities, I look at the major revenues, expenses, and capital assets. And over the last several years, when the economy was really bad, a lot of cities were not fortunate enough to spend money on capital assets. So overall, to see a city put money aside, or to see the capital assets grow, is a positive sign. It means they're putting infrastructure into the community, building roads and parks and so forth. So there's three primary ways to increase capital assets. One is to receive a grant funding. We'll receive a grant to pay for an asset. We can use DIF funds that are paid by developers that we can actually build streets, roads, bridges. And then we also have a category which is called developer contributions. And that is where a developer will install roads and streets, curb and gutter, sidewalks within a development. And then after that development is completed, it will become part of our assets, and we'll maintain those from in the future period. So some of the items that we inquired, I'll go over briefly. But you can see at the beginning of the fiscal year, which was the end of fiscal year 2013, we had a total of $73.3 million of capital assets. We incurred a total of $19.5 million to get an end of the year of $92.8 million in capital assets. So a couple of items that we had, and here we go. Wait for it, here comes the exciting part. The Audie Murphy Ranch Sports Park was donated to the city, and the total price tag on that with land and all the fixtures, that's a 11.3 million acre park at a price tag to us, which we did not have to pay, but equivalent fair market value of $8,103,000. So $8.1 million for that park. Another item that was donated to us this year was the Senior Center from the Riverside County at a price tag of $4.7 million. Again, this was no cost to us, but a nice value to us. We were able to acquire some vehicles this year. We acquired 7 Highlanders, total cost of $284,000, all through AQMD funding. So really no cost to the city or the general fund. And again, we acquired another vehicle through AQMD, price tag roughly $26,000. Again, no impact to the general fund. So overall, a very successful year. Total general fund revenues increased 24.7 million, 24.7% over prior year. Our other major revenues, such as gas tax and Measure A, were up. We were able to put $1 million away in the reserves from our general fund, and our total assets, which we're actually providing value to the community, increased almost $20 million. So overall, a very successful year compared to the prior year.
Good news, Mr. Folsom. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I just want to thank Bruce. Coming on staff was a interesting time for us. He did a yeoman's work in getting in and digging in and really doing a forensic audit on our financials for us prior to the audits coming in. And Bruce, I want to thank you very much for all the work that you did and your team. Appreciate that very much. And it looks like we're on a good track. And Bruce, we're thankful that you're here. Thank you.
Any questions from council? Hearing none, thank you, Mr. Foltz, once again. It's always nice to see $1 million swept into the reserve at the end of the year. Congrats. On to approval of the minutes. Agenda item 6.1, minutes of the special meeting from workshop January 26, 2015. Are there any modifications to those minutes? Hearing none, those minutes are approved. Minutes of the city council meeting from February 4th, 2015. Are there any modifications? Hearing none, those minutes are approved. Madam Clerk, do we have any agenda modifications for tonight?
No, sir, as posted.
Thank you, Madam. And on to public comment. Before we call the first speaker, I would like to share a thought with you tonight. We here in the city of Menifee welcome public input, and we're all privileged to live in a country where people have freedom of speech to express their views. With this freedom comes the responsibility to be dignified and respectful in public comments and discourse. Everyone's respect for the speaker will be affected by the respect the speaker shows towards others. We appreciate your reflecting upon the Spirit when you speak tonight. Thank you very much. With that being said, Madam Clerk, would you please call the first public commenter?
Yes, Your Honor. Casson Klein.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, staff, residents. Casson Klein. I wanted to come to give you a brief update on the Commerce Point industrial project. As you're aware, we commenced grading last month, and grading is all but complete now with the rough grading. We're ready to pour concrete in the bottom of the concrete storm drain on site, and also ready to commence grading on Ziders Road. And we anticipate starting excavation of the sewer main line on March 9th. So it has proceeded relatively smoothly, but I also want to sincerely compliment your staff, particularly Public Works Director and City Manager or City Engineer Jonathan Smith, his Senior Inspector Don Harding, and Don Sharp, and Planning Manager Lisa Gordon. In the times that we have come upon some challenges, the staff has been attentive, they've been available, and just I can't compliment them enough. So as you know, it's been a long time. The project was approved by City Council back in 2009. We're finally here, and as you may recall, and for benefit of the public that may not know, the Commerce Point project and commencing it and the grading is a key to the Scott Road I-215 interchange moving forward as required by the lead agency to provide access to Bailey Park. The residents and property owners on Bailey Park, because the interchange plan calls for Bailey Park at Scott Road terminating. So again, we view it as a partnership with the city and are proceeding forward, and just want to thank you. I wanted to provide that update for you. So if it's appropriate, I'm available for questions, Mr. Mayor. If not, I'll take my seat.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. Appreciate it. Next speaker, please.
Ms. Miller.
Good evening, Council. The scandalous orange skirt field at Newport and Antelope, which will be slated as Menifee Lakes Plaza, violates the county-eligible scenic highway plan resources as aesthetically offensive to public consciousness. Menifee Lakes Plaza will violate the Municipal Code Chapter 6.1 Dark Sky Ordinances to keep skies dark so Palomar Observatory can study the upper atmosphere. The project exposes residential property to unacceptable light levels.
Ma'am, Ms. Miller, just for a moment, stop there.
But stop that.
Yeah. Do you have something other than the Menifee Lakes Plaza to speak on tonight? Because that is a public hearing item, and you should reserve those comments for the public hearing. Do you have other comments? Otherwise, we'll invite you back for the public hearing.
Oh, yes, I've already signed up for the public hearing.
Okay. Do you have something else that you would like to share with us that's not related to the public hearing?
Well, I think we should turn the rest of the fields in Menifee to the Williamson Act preservation as they were agriculture, and that they need to continue to be agricultural because we're having to import alfalfa for the existing livestock here and all over Southern California because they're importing it from Oregon and Washington State because we don't have enough fields left because you keep planting buildings. We just don't need this heat and this CO2 rise. So Elderman Oaks, we could have many Santa Rosa plateaus all through this area. We don't need large box buildings. So I'll be speaking.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Katie Manier.
Good evening. I just have one question tonight. Lots of comments, but one question. What did it cost the taxpayers to have an extra deputy on duty at the last meeting to protect the mayor from someone speaking the truth? Funny, the people you threatened didn't have the option of police protection. In fact, the police protected you even when you were the one making threats. Mr. Melching needs some direction as to the decorum policy. Last meeting, I did not speak directly to Rob Johnson, but about him. I said he keeps referring to the Laladera homes as being red tagged. I have never once, when I've talked about those homes, said they were red tagged. I have said they're uninhabitable, which they are. I have been speaking for years and stating I have documentation to what I say, and not once have any of you asked for documentation. I'm here every week with documentation. It would be so easy to say, let me see what you have for documents. You guys don't want the documents. You don't want truth out there. You don't want the people safe. You don't want to protect them at all. It's all about money, power, greed, not honesty and integrity. Then, on another note, I would like to express my deepest sympathies to Wally. I hope he's on the mend. I hope things are better for him. I noticed he's not here tonight, so keeping him in thoughts and hope he's back with us.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker, please.
Ann Pica.
Good evening. I'm going to read an email that I sent to the mayor and council members who violated their own decorum policy at the last city council meeting. Mr. Mayor, I watched the unprofessional and illegal actions against the public speaker at the last city council meeting. You did not follow the city council decorum policy and tried to shut down public speakers simply because you did not like what they had to say. Item number 4, the city decorum policy, public comments. If a member of the public addresses the city council on a matter that is not on the agenda during public comments, the Brown Act does not allow council members to engage in discussion nor deliberation of the matter. That includes the city attorney who is not a member of the city council but is a city employee. Number 5 of the City Council decorum states the City Council may not prohibit criticism of the policy, procedures, programs, or services of an agency or its acts or omissions. A speaker may not be stopped from speaking because the presiding officer or members of the City Council disagree with the viewpoint being expressed during the City Council meeting. The law also states this fact. And finally, Section A, rules for city staff. City staff shall not engage in dialogue with members of the public during City Council meetings. City staff shall direct all comments and presentations to the City Council or presiding officer only. That means the City Attorney, as he is a member of City staff. The City Attorney not only violated the decorum policy for City staff, he also violated state law regarding what a public speaker can say or address on the City Council during public comments. I would encourage Mrs. Marino and Mrs. Manier to proceed with suing the City of Menifee for violating the law in their right to free speech. I wrote the ordinance that was approved for 4 districts and the mayor at large, and the mayor has no more power than any other member on the council. Your only function above the other members of the council is as the chair of City Council meetings, and clearly you don't know how to do that. You work for the people of Menifee, not the other way around, and clearly Mrs. Marino and Mrs. Manier were bullied by you and staff at the last City Council meeting. Something is seriously wrong in the city of Menifee, with 9 potential lawsuits knocking on the doors of City Hall, with number 10 fast approaching, and the taxpayers of Menifee will pay the price. Menifee is probably only 1 lawsuit away from bankruptcy because of this City Council's actions.
Thank you, Ms. Pekin. Next speaker.
Marnie Palmer. I don't. The last letters, I'm sorry.
Well, I kind of feel at a funny place because I came in with such positive thing. I'm out in our city all the time, and I walk the streets and I do my business. Oh, that didn't sound good. Anyhow, I'm a real estate agent, and I deal with the people, and I hear so many positive things. The people that I'm dealing with are so pleased with what they see, how our council is working together. They're very pleased with what they see happening. A little frustrating with as slow as it is, but we remind them all the time, with growth comes great growth pains. We have a lot of wonderful media happening. I love the city site. It's positive. People can come and get the answers instead of the rumor and innuendo that goes so rampantly through our district. I would just like to say again that we agree with the decorum policy. We understand what it is to be a public person that people are venting their anger on. And for me, if there's a concern about this land and these people, then perhaps these people, these advocacies, would go out and possibly start a GoFundMe or a Fund Start and raise money to help these people through their problems or through their illnesses. Instead of going to the negative, I think they should probably bring in some positive and do good with it. Anyhow, I want to thank you guys. I'm out there all the time, and I believe that our city is growing fabulously, and I really want to know, come 250, if we're really going to have that triple population. I know you guys are setting a good pace for us.
Thanks, Ms. Palmer. Next speaker, please.
Karen Nolan.
Good evening, Scott Mann, Mayor Scott Mann, Pro Tem, and the City Council. My name is Karen Nolan, and I am a business owner here in the City of Menifee. I'm also on the Board of Directors for the City of Council, the Board of Directors for the Menifee Chamber of Commerce. Couldn't get all those letters out. And I just also wanted to come tonight just to give a positive feedback to you and all the effort that the City Council has been putting forth of moving Menifee forward. Being that I am with the company of LCL Realty and Property Management, we're currently your largest property management company in the city. We manage close to 300 homes here in the city of Menifee and abroad, and we deal with a lot of your residents and a lot of your homeowners. And I want to tell you that we hear a positive feedback about the city of Menifee. Most people are very excited about the growth and what's happening here. As also on the Chamber of Commerce, I also hear other businesses talk about their excitement about the new building that's coming in and how it's going to flourish their personal business, and they're very excited about that. I was at the economic forecast, and I had heard a lot of positive feedback that it was very informative, and people got a lot of good information on what they needed to know about what the city has. I know your position, what you have to do, you hear a lot of negative in this forum, and sometimes you don't get to hear all the positives that we get to hear. So I just wanted to come in and let you know that there is positive things that are being said about what you're doing, and it is very difficult to move something forward and be on the offense. And that's what I want to say we see on this side, that this city council member is on the offense, moving Menifee forward. You aren't acting on the defense consistently, but moving forward on the offense. And I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker, please.
Grant Yoders.
Good evening, City Council. Grant Yoders, community of Sun City. I hold in my hand the article from the Press Enterprise dated 6 February referring to the last meeting of the 4th. The article was inaptly placed in the wrong part of the newspaper. It should have been placed in the entertainment section titled Comedy of Errors Performed by the Menifee Amateur Players, Admission Free. What we had on the evening of the 4th was a pre-planned collusionary effort by our city attorney and the mayor to stifle Miss Meniere's freedom of speech, knowing that she would do her routine rail towards those on the dais. However, our city attorney violated the city's own decorum policy by jumping right in, acting as if he were chair of the meeting. But things went south from there when Miss Moreno took the podium. She called a spade by referring to the mayor as a bully. That is when all hell erupted. Our mayor became so exasperated, red-faced, puffy-jowled, and boisterous, displaying the true bully for which he was accused. It reminds me of the movie A Few Good Men, when Jack Nicholson said, "You can't handle the truth." Our mayor seems to forget that we are a general law city with 5 persons on the city council, each with 1 vote and equal power. Our mayor also seems to think that he has the imaginary power or the authority, when in fact his position is ceremonial at best. He just acts as presiding officer at the council meetings. The mayor does not speak for the city or any member of the city council. The mayor may speak about the city, and any comments or remarks are his and his alone. And who do we blame for this imaginary power? The other 4 members on the council. There is not one set of gonads among the 4 of you. They polish the mayor's boots and kiss his ring. As Mr. Edgerton told our mayor last November, quote, "You are not the king." This is not the first time to stifle freedom of speech. It was also done last November by our mayor and the city attorney when they shut down our city council persons for making general comments. But that was initiated by our mayor to put a muzzle on ex-councilman Tom Furman. Mrs. McDuff hit it right in the following Press Enterprise article of February 16 when she called it like it is. Our mayor stated that he felt bad about gaveling Miss Moreno out of the meeting. Then why didn't he man up and swallow his pride? He relished every moment of his decision. Our mayor seems to live in the fantasy world where he thinks he is a real mayor and runs the city. I say no, no, no. 1 chair, 1 vote.
Thank you, Mr. Yoders. Next speaker, please.
Mark Metelko.
Hi, good evening. A couple of city council meetings ago, city manager Rob Johnson stated that Roxanne Thompson represents the rural area or community. I would like to state that I live and own property in the rural area. Roxanne Thompson does not now or has she ever represented me or my property in Menifee. I also spoke to several of my neighbors. They stated to me that Roxanne Thompson does not represent them either. I think the city manager or staff needs to be more specific when you make statements that are made with who represents whom. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Metelko. Next speaker, please.
Rochelle Sterling.
Yes, hello, gentlemen, and Madam Clerk. I'm sure you've all received my cease and desist letter. I'm again absolutely appalled by Mr. Mann's actions in interrupting that woman who was speaking on this Lakes Plaza project. You had absolutely no right to interrupt her, and again, that is an act of impeding her speech. What occurred here at the last meeting with Ms. Moreno was an atrocity. Your city attorney usurped your authority, then took action that violated Ms. Moreno's First Amendment rights. You removed her husband also from the property, who didn't even speak. And by his very actions, he not only did not protect his client, which is what he is supposed to do, but he subjected his client to liability, in my opinion. So whether or not Ms. Moreno opts to file litigation in this matter, perhaps, Mr. Melching, you should advise your firm to put their malpractice carrier on notice. This is going to stop. We've seen this happen at the county. We've seen this happen at many other cities, and we're not going to tolerate it. Unless there is a disruption, you are not to interrupt your speakers. And a disruption is not your illusion of a disruption. It's an actual disruption. I'm going to provide a copy of Baca versus Moreno Valley for your city attorney. He obviously is not familiar with this case and perhaps is not familiar with constitutional law at all. Because what occurred here, as a lawyer, to me is baffling, that those words came out of Mr. Melching's mouth and that he just jumped in there and usurped your authority. That was so out of line. I'm also very concerned, it's being brought to my attention that there are some selective code enforcement activities occurring. I'm going to be looking very closely at all these rural properties. I've mapped out the city of Menifee and all your major development projects, all your major capital improvement projects, all your major infrastructure projects, and I'm looking very closely at where you're deciding to engage in code enforcement activities. Many of these rural property owners do have nonconforming rights. I'm extremely familiar with nonconforming rights. I was a code prosecutor once. So I'm going to be looking at all their files. And I think when you came onto this council, you knew that these people had nonconforming rights because these businesses existed in the county. So I am hoping I do not find that you were engaging in selective code enforcement for the benefit of a possible land grab by somebody, maybe a developer. I don't know what I'm going to find, but I'm very well versed in code enforcement. I've been a municipal attorney for almost 18 years, and I will not tolerate, under any circumstances, abusive government. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Vivian Moreno.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. We seek to maintain and expand the meaning of patriotism, respect for our national symbols, the value of American citizenship, and unifying force of e pluribus unum that was created from the many of nations, one nation and one people. We are tasked to maintain and extend the institutions of American freedom and to carry out the purposes expressed in the preamble to the Constitution of our country. This is a quote from the Sons of the American Revolution, which, Mr. Scott Mann, I believe you are a member. You proclaimed on September 17th that would be Constitution Day or Constitution Week. I wasn't quite clear. But my concern was, what did that really mean to you? And then you come here and you deny the public and your council members their right to free speech. You have denied them the freedoms that they are afforded just because they are Americans. You need to be ousted from the Sons of the American Revolution for what you have done to your community, to the patrons here in this room, your fellow council member, Tom Furman, the County of Riverside, and your country. You, Mr. Mann, are a hypocrite. Instead of uniting your community, you are dividing it. The laws of the city of Menifee are superseded by the state of California and the Constitution of the United States. It is your true intention, and you have clearly demonstrated, to take away the voice of the people of Menifee. By law, we can criticize staff, council, and the mayor. Mr. Mann, the public here is only asking to be heard. And for you to bully, belittle, and interrupt them is against the law. Everyone shall have the right to hold opinions without interference, and everyone shall have the right to freedom of expression. You use your sheriff as a king would use his army. You are not a king, you are a mayor, a son of the American Revolution in the United States of America, where freedom of speech is king.
Thank you very much, Ms. Marino. Next speaker, please.
Jason Hunter.
That's actually pretty good.
Good evening, Jason Hunter. Every oath of office taken by elected officials in the state of California includes the swearing of allegiance to the Constitution of the United States of America, as amended. Of course, included within these amendments is our Bill of Rights, which of course contains the right of citizens to petition their government for redress of grievances and the freedom of speech. You have sworn to protect those rights, every one of you, as patriots in this country have done for over 200 years through their blood, sweat, and tears, their work, their passion, and sometimes regrettably their lives. On that note, the video I saw from 2 weeks ago's council meeting in which Ms. Vivian Marino tried to opine on the state of affairs within Menifee, particularly its leadership, and was summarily restricted from exercising her rights as a U.S. citizen by Mayor Mann and City Attorney Melching. This video was appalling to me. What I saw was a mayor who interrupted Ms. Moreno and a city attorney who interjected himself into a discussion without acknowledgement by the presiding officer. That was a non-emotional, neutral, some would say, take on those events. Many people are not programmed like robots, and they may have instead stated the events as this. I saw a thin-skinned bully mayor and his all-too-eager crony attack dog hack lawyer gang up on a member of the public to violate her rights because they didn't want to hear what she had to say, and I imagine discourage others from coming forward in the future to criticize their performance, the performance of public officials. Well, how's that working for you now? I saw you two individuals disrupt the meeting and then have the audacity to remove Ms. Moreno from the building, better yet, the property, under the auspices that she had been the one who caused the disruption. Unfortunately for you, sirs, this was all captured on video for folks to witness your little scheme. The conduct was shameful. Your game backfired, and now you have drawn extra attention to what's going on here in Menifee. I believe you two owe Mr. and Mrs. Moreno an apology, as well as the first speaker tonight, who you also interrupted. You may not like what these United States citizens have to say, but you chose this job and you took your oath, which you have now broken. They must be heard. An apology is what would be appropriate and would demonstrate the strength of your character, and if the apology is sincere and corrective action taken, perhaps we can move on. And if not, well, I really hope we don't have to go down that path. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Maria Kreutzner.
They only had 12 speakers.
Good evening, Mayor, Councilman. My name is Maria Kruxer, and my English is so bad. I came last year. I spoke in here about my street. I live in Tucker Road, and I need to know when I'm going to maintain our street. It's so bad. That is my question I have for you.
What's the street again?
It's on Tucker.
Tucker?
Tucker Road. That is my question I have for you. When we're going to maintain the street?
I do remember you speaking to that, and I believe Mr. Smith actually took some information from you.
Okay.
And we'll be glad to give you some additional information through our city engineer.
They came last year only two times. And I talking to the enforcement too. They come in there to see all the properties there because I have some neighbors, they living in miserable place there with, a lot of bushes, we can have fires there. And my property is so nice, very clean, nice, but the other property there is so horrible there. I need to know if the enforcement man coming there to check it out, the properties there. And maintain the road too, because it's miserable driving there.
Okay. Thank you.
When we done that, is take it forever or what?
We'll get Mr. Johnson. I think we can give some feedback at the appropriate time.
Yes, we can.
Mr. Mayor, I know they came twice last year, but the neighbors, they chasing the people who working in the street because they don't want nothing to do with the city, but it's a city now, City Menifee. And I know you win the election last year, and I want to know you working out with that.
Yeah. Where's exactly Tucker Road at, Mr. Smith?
It's north of Scott. Sorry, I just pulled it up on a map right now. North of Scott, connects Scott and Wickard. It looks to be an unmaintained dirt road. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
So we need to check to see that it's either county, if the county accept it, did the city accept it, and then we need to get with our road maintenance plan. So
We will look into it further. Mr. Smith, if you would make sure that you have her information and give her some direct feedback on what the status of that road is, who owns it, who owned it, do we have responsibility for it, and what can be done. Would that help?
Yeah, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. Next speaker, please.
Julie Waltz.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Julie Waltz, and I'm a very proud American, and I would like to thank the veterans for allowing me to stand at this podium and supporting my right to free speech. Mr. Mann, I would like to address you directly and ask you if you are familiar with the following words. I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter. All of you on the council, our council members, are familiar with this oath. The oath that each of you placed your left hand on a Bible and raised your right hand to a square and swore to uphold. Are the law enforcement officers who were sworn to serve and protect the public yet obeyed your orders to remove Ms. Marino from the public property familiar with this oath? Now I have another question for you. Have any of you gentlemen ever read the Constitution of the United States of America or the California Constitution? I'll take that as a no. Well, I have, and neither of them contain any reference to a decorum policy. Mr. Mann, it surprises me that you, a member of the Sons and Daughters of the American Revolution, would so willingly tromp on people's First Amendment rights. May I remind you that you are a public servant, the mayor of a small town, and not the dictator of this country. You have absolutely no authority to step on my or anyone else's freedom of speech. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Britt Holmstrom.
Dear City Council, I came as an observer today because the right to speak has always been important to me. I'm 72 years old now, reared by a grandmother who had 13 kids who ran a railroad station at railroad time. I run a very disciplined life, but the most important lesson that she gave to me was, before you take your right to speak, make sure you speak the truth and leave your ego on the other side of where you're going to be speaking. Evidently, you didn't do that. You took your ego through this door, and you enjoyed it in your administrative capacity. I've seen that elsewhere. Now, since you cut her short, Miss Marino, and I didn't know how short you did, and you also cut her husband, Javier, short, I'm going to ask her to come up to me now, and I'm going to give you 2 minutes of my time to apologize to both of them. Because when you are an administrator, elected or not, you have to know when to apologize to your constituents. And I have not heard that you've done that yet. So why don't you apologize to them now? My time. And if you choose not to do that, that tells me something about you still, doesn't it? You do not have your constituents in mind when you took a public office and people put their faith in you and elected you to your posts. You're still playing the game, or you're not? The game that I sat back there and heard that you were playing. Shame on you. It's your time to speak still. Apologize to this woman. Apologize to her husband. Right now is your time to do it if you want to save face. Let me know when the time is up for you to speak. Shame on you. Sorry.
Next speaker, please.
Mayor, those are all the commenters on your public comment portion of the agenda. You do have a commenter coming when you reach consent.
Okay, thank you for that reminder. Council members, do you have any committee reports for tonight? Mr. Leesmeyer.
I do not have any committee reports. I just had a couple of questions of staff, if that's okay. Mr. Johnson, I spoke with you earlier today, and I wanted to share with the rest of the council as I was driving down Newport Road. A great concern for kids on skateboards riding down the bike lane of Newport Road on skateboards from the skate park towards town. And the first thing I noticed is that there's still no sidewalk on Newport Road, especially right there in front of Walgreens, which is an approved project. And my recollection would be that the project would be required to do their sidewalk. I just wanted to ask if we knew what was going on with that sidewalk, and if perhaps the road alignment is in its final resting place for Newport Road, if we could encourage Audie Murphy Development to get that sidewalk in so we can get the kids out of the street.
Yes, Councilmember Leesmeyer, I believe that's part of the Audie Murphy Ranch conditions of approval. They're going to be doing the median, which is west of Murrieta to Berea, I believe, and they also have the condition to install the sidewalk on the south side of Newport from Murrieta to Berea as well.
Is that something that can happen sooner than later?
We're working on that with the park phasing. I think it's PA 31. Is that correct? PA 31, the park that's being developed right now, the triangle piece north of Newport, east of Berea, south of Old Newport, which is Normandy now. I believe that if it's not going to be done in conjunction with that project directly, it will be soon after.
Okay. The second concern was regarding a text that I got from a resident in District 2 regarding the status of the skate park and the trash and beer bottles and everything being left out there in the flower bed. My understanding is that there's additional patrols and security over there, but it doesn't sound like it's happening. And if it is, what's going on?
Well, the trash in the area should be picked up by our contractor, Valleywide, who's in charge of that skate park and the grounds over there during before and after. I believe that's part of their responsibility to do that. Secondarily, we have moved the traffic patrols in that area to do extra drive-bys, and we have 3 extra police officers now. Additional, I should say, not extra, because you never have any extra police. Additional police officers that will be taken into that area and monitoring the situation.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Mr. Denver.
Mr. Mayor, Council, we had a wonderful event here yesterday, I believe it was,
Senator Ken Calvert came and spoke to us and updated us on all what was going on at the state of California level. And it was a great event, and I was very pleased to be here.
Thank you, Mr. Denver.
If I may piggyback on that, I think the biggest takeaway there was that we all need to support a new transportation bill. With the gas tax being what it is, a lot of vehicles going to alternative energy, the gas tax isn't going to do the job anymore coming into the future. So that was the biggest takeaway that I had from that meeting.
Thank you very much. On to the consent calendar. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers on the consent calendar?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Whoa, sorry, got a little close to that mic. Grant Yoders, please.
Good evening once again, Grant Yoders, community of Sun City. My favorite subject, the warrant register. I do have one positive comment, and I want to thank you folks for finally honoring my request of 4.5 years to have the totals for the warrant register on the agenda. Now, if maybe I could only also ask you to add a column to the warrant register summary on the far right-hand side to show the year-to-date totals of all of these items, so I don't have to maintain my own register at home. As far, and maybe sometime within the next 3 or 4 years, the City Council may honor my request when I ask questions regarding the warrant register figures, and I have just a couple that I want to mention here tonight. Number one has to do with the $62,463 for the Newport median landscaping. That sounds an awful lot of money just to put in trees and rocks and flowers. Maybe that can be justified. I also have a comment in regards to the animal field services for $17,000 and the animal sheltering services for $14,000, which is a total of $31,000 and some change. If you were to project that out over the past 6 years, that would come out to be $2.3 million. And I would think that there might be some consideration of doing our own services in the city. Once upon a time, Wildemar was entertaining the thought of doing their own animal services, and I mentioned at that time that maybe someone could research that and see if we could partner with those folks as opposed to keep sending all this money to these other folks. I'm looking at another landscaping project, $13,185. I'm looking at a Christmas tree for $2,737. Really expensive tree. $575 for this young gentleman to sit here and hold up the wall, and also to escort these surly women out of the chamber. Asphalt striping, $12,372. That's an awful lot of money for paint. Membership dues for California League of Cities, $18,609. That's an awful lot of money just to pay for membership dues. And kangaroo rat fees, $31,000. We must have an awful lot of rats in this city. And my last item has to do, or my next item has to do, which is my favorite one, which is the credit card expenses. I noticed here when you folks went to the California League of Cities, airline fees for Mr. Liesemeyer. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's your time.
I'll kiss it next time.
Thank you, Mr. Yoders. Next is there any other speakers on the consent calendar?
No, sir.
With that, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the consent calendar.
So moved.
May I have a second? Second. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember August. Councilmember Liesemeyer.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Denver. Mayor Mann.
Aye.
Thank you.
On to agenda item 11.1, our first public hearing of the evening. Public hearing for specific plan amendment number 2012-115, a change of zone for number 2014-206, plot plan number 2014-113, revision for plot plan number 2009-52, located north of Newport Road, west of Antelope Road, and east of Interstate 215, known as the Menifee Lakes Plaza. Mr. Johnson, do we have a staff report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. We do, Interim Community Development Director Bob Brady, I'm going to hand it to you for the balance of the item. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. The item before you is located on a 16-acre parcel. There are several action items before you this evening with regards to the project, including the public hearing as well. There is an recommended adoption of a resolution related to the environmental document, introduction of an ordinance related to the specific plan amendment, and introduction of an ordinance regarding the zone change, and the proposed adoption of a resolution for the plot plan. This evening, I would ask the project planner, Mr. Russell Brady, to review this with the City Council. Then we'd be happy to answer any questions the council may have.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Russell Brady, contract planner, presenting on behalf of staff. Agenda item number 11.1, consisting of the Menifee Lakes Plaza revision, consisting of a plot plan, specific plan amendment, and change of zone. The project is located easterly of I-215, northerly of Newport Road, and westerly of Antelope Road. The project site existing zoning is specific plan Menifee Village, plan area 1-1. Surrounding zoning is entirely specific plan with designations of residential to the north and east, commercial to the south, and to the west, office and commercial. Current site is vacant to the north and east, single-family residential, south commercial, to the west I-215 and commercial and offices. The plot plan number 2014-113 proposes a revision to the previously approved Menifee Lakes Plaza to add primarily an LA Fitness gym to the site. Specifically, the changes to the site plan include the following. Eliminating pads 1, 2, 3, and 4, which total approximately 32,000 square feet, and replace with a 34,500 square foot LA Fitness building with an additional 3,500 square feet mezzanine, which totals 38,000 square feet. Revise references from pads to out parcels, modify the parking field and drive aisles around the proposed LA Fitness, modify the 2 driveways at Balsa Road, as well as between Balsa and Pampas. Majors 1, 2, and 3 are increased in between range of approximately 1,000 square feet to almost 4,000 square feet each. Increase the amount of parking spaces from 787 to 843. To note, 775 parking spaces would be required based on this proposed specific plan amendment. In total, the increased total building square footage from 171,817 square feet to 184,717 square feet. Convert pad 5 to out parcel 1. Some later revisions include 2 additional sign panel areas for the freeway pylon sign A and pylon sign B, as well as shifting the primary pylon sign along the I-215 frontage to adjacent to the hotel site, primarily to screen from the adjacent residential uses. Here showing the current approved site plan. The areas highlighted in orange are the existing pads that are being removed and essentially consolidated into the proposed LA Fitness location that you see here highlighted in orange. The associated specific plan amendment and change of zone proposes to change the zoning ordinance text of the Menifee Village specific plan, in particular for plan area 1-1 as follows. Primarily to allow for the gym use with approval of a plot plan to allow the LA Fitness as proposed. Modify the zoning ordinance to add and delete certain allowed uses for plan area 1-1 only. The life of a conditional use permit would be extended from 1 year to 5 years with no extensions, and life of a plot plan extended from 2 years to 5 years with no extensions. Modify the parking area design standards related to step outs, curb stops, or wheel stops and other design standards, as well as modifying the parking rate for general retail shopping centers, currently at 5.5 spaces per 1,000 square feet to 5 spaces per 1,000 square feet. To note, under the existing 5.5 rate, that would require the center to have a total of 882 parking spaces, whereas the revised parking requirement at 5 per 1,000 would require a minimum total of 775 parking spaces. And also just to note, 843 are being provided by the proposed project. One of the late items, prior to the Planning Commission meeting, the LA Fitness elevations were revised based on the revised location of it. With that revision, there was a sports graphic kind of shown in detail here that was added. Initially, discussion between staff and the applicant, it was thought that the graphic would be removed, therefore it wasn't brought up at Planning Commission as an item to discuss and decide on. However, since the Planning Commission's review and determination on the project, the applicant, in particular for LA Fitness, has expressed their desire to include the sports graphic. Staff's review of this, generally that the design of this isn't of a quality or type that it would be characterized as a mural, giving kind of an artistic quality to it. Based on that, it could generally be defined as a sign, and the current sign program for the center does not imagine this type of wall graphic. And based on that, staff does not recommend its inclusion on the design of the center. However, since the applicant is requesting its inclusion, staff would suggest the City Council specifically address this matter, and that if the graphic is to be included or allowed by the City Council, a condition be added for the project that staff review the design of the graphic prior to any installation or replacement of the graphic, just to confirm its quality with the center. Beyond that, just to note some of the items that were discussed during the Planning Commission meetings for the project. The LA Fitness location, originally reviewed by Planning Commission, it was closer to Antelope Road. It's been shifted closer to I-215, which opens up the site a little bit more visually towards the hotel site, which was a little bit more closed off before with the location of the LA Fitness closer to Antelope. The hotel building height, to note, the prior conditional use permits and extension of time for this project approved approximately a year or two ago, approved a 45-foot max height for that hotel. With staff's review of the revision, we requested revised elevations to match up with that 45-foot max height. With that revised elevations, there was still concern from the Planning Commission as well as the public on the height as it sits close to Antelope Road and the adjacent single-family residential uses across Antelope Road. The elevations for the hotel are essentially conceptual, and that once an actual hotel user comes in for the site, more detailed elevations would be submitted to the city for review, and that based on that, staff had recommended and the Planning Commission had accepted a condition for the Planning Commission to review these specific elevations based on a specific tenant for the hotel. Some other items, the open area as far as public seating areas, as far as the amount of the size of it, the location and the phasing of it were discussed and conditions have been included. Corner monument design was included and reviewed by Planning Commission. A parking analysis was provided to justify the revised 5 per 1,000 rate, as well as a condition is added that prior to building permit issuance, a verification of adequate parking being provided, such as if a restaurant use comes in that demands a lot of parking, that a continual verification of adequate parking is provided for the center. Later on, the 2 pylon signs, the applicant requested 2 additional sign panels be added for each of the pylon signs. And as noted, the northern pylon sign is shifted further south to be adjacent and screened by the hotel. I can provide additional details on each of those if the council desires, but based on that, staff recommends the City Council conduct a public hearing, adopt the resolution adopting an addendum to the environmental assessment mitigated negative declaration, introduce ordinance number 2015-164 approving specific plan amendment number 2012-115, and introduce ordinance number 2015-165 approving changes zone number 2014-206, and adopt resolution number 15-423 approving plot plan number 2014-113. This concludes staff's presentation. I'm available for any questions council may have.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions of staff of the presentation? Mr. August.
Question, sir. Can you, as far as, I might be asking the wrong person here, ADA compliant, are all the buildings in the center are required to be ADA compliant?
Correct.
They will, okay. And what about handicap parking? What's the requirement on that?
Off the top of my head, I don't recall the exact rate of handicap or accessible parking required based on the square footage, but adequate accessible parking is being provided throughout the center.
But there's a requirement and it's being met?
Correct.
Okay. One other question. permanent shade structures in the eating areas outside, that was discussed, and somebody was under the impression that that was dealt with a condition of approval and at a planning commission meeting. I don't think that's correct, is it?
There was a condition regarding the outdoor or public seating areas, and that would be something through administrative review, staff would review, and the condition included some preferred design incorporation for those public seating areas that would guide both the applicant, the developer, as well as staff through the administrative review of that.
And what about the shade for those areas?
I can dig up the specific wording for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, I thought you were digging it up now.
In case there were any other questions in the meantime.
Any other questions at this juncture?
Yeah, briefly.
Mr. Leesmeyer?
During my tenure on the commission, I saw this project, and the one question that I don't recall ever getting resolved was how that driveway works at the hotel. Did that get solved? There was an issue, that I thought there was an issue with how that that driveway was going to fork right as you came in the throat of that driveway. At the time, I thought it was two-way traffic on both of those driveways.
I believe that northern driveway, or not the northernmost driveway, but I think you're talking about where the entrance to the hotel comes in there.
Basically, yeah, the entrance to the portico area.
Across from Balsa, I believe that road is.
Correct.
That, as we reviewed previously, would, and I defer to the city engineer here a bit, but would handle a lighter load of the traffic, and so there wouldn't be a lot of traffic really using that driveway. And also with the latest revision, the alignment of that driveway was tweaked a little bit so that it's a little bit more clear as far as the traffic coming into the site, that that they aren't confused with the hotel entry, that they're directed into the site a little bit more logically.
Okay. Thanks.
To note on condition 47, page 20 of 51 of the conditions, there is a note here, shading structures and/or features shall also be required to be provided with any outdoor seating area.
Say that one more time, sir.
Shading structures and/or features shall also be required to be provided with any outdoor seating area.
Thank you, sir.
Any additional questions at this time?
Just one question, Mayor. Just, you probably already said this, but as far as the graphic goes, are we going to be voting on anything tonight on that?
As staff, we would look for some direction from the council, whether they would like to have it or not have it, and that staff suggest if it is to be included, that there be a condition added to the project that it be reviewed by staff prior to any installation.
But that's going to be on a building and not a sign.
Staff at this point could generally define it as a sign, since it's generally not an artistic necessarily quality.
He means it would be on the actual building itself, facing the freeway, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right, so are we going to be voting on that tonight?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Denver?
My opinion on this is that if it's a sign, it's a sign. If the graphic itself says LA Fitness, then it's a sign. If it's artwork, if it's something that is artistic and is only having to do with physical activity or something like that, then I think it could be considered artwork, and I think staff is capable of determining whether it's one or the other. That's my opinion.
And we'll get to that later on down in the public hearing. Are there any other additions or any other questions from council to staff? Hearing none, thank you very much for your presentation, and we may have some additional questions down the road. But at this time, I'd like to open the public hearing at time 8:38. And Madam Clerk, have we received any correspondence since this was noticed, and was it properly noticed?
It was properly noticed, and we've not received any correspondence that you've not already received.
Thank you very much. At this time, we'll call for public testimony, and we'd ask the applicant to come to the podium first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Larry Markham, representing the applicant. We are here to concur with the recommendations of the Planning Commission and staff, concur with the conditions of approval, and would request the consideration of the graphic on the LA Fitness building. We also have our entire team here. Mr. Miramontes is here, our architect, our specific plan planner, our traffic engineer, and Greg George from LA Fitness, who I think would like to come up and address you as well. And then we will come back and request the opportunity to discuss any testimony that is given after any other pro or con testimony.
Of course.
With that, happy to answer any questions too, by the way.
Any questions, Mr. Mark?
Yeah. What are the approximate TUMF and DIF fees that the project will be contributing?
Oh, odd. Would ask me that. It's substantial.
I believe it's notable, yeah.
Yeah, it is a substantial amount of money for the entire project. I don't have that at my fingertips. Possibly Jonathan may have it. I don't know, but it is probably a few $1 million. So.
I know the junction was $8 million in total fees in terms of infrastructure, diff, and regional fees. So comparison, I don't know how many square feet this is. I can't off the top of my head, but it would probably be a little bit under that, just because the size of your project is smaller.
Not quite as big, right?
But it's in the millions. It's
Yes.
it's in the seven figures, to be sure.
Very definitely.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you. And we have Mr. from LA Fitness. Yeah, come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. I'm Greg George. I'm the Regional Real Estate VP for LA Fitness. And I guess what I'd like to address is the graphic. What the graphic you have before you there is really kind of a placeholder. And we're certainly open for design. We just think it's colorful. It breaks up the back of the building a bit. I had submitted online or through an email another attempt at maybe creating something that would say, "Welcome to Menifee, City of the Future," or something like that. So that before you is really a placeholder. We're open to suggestions. We just do think it's colorful. It breaks up that massiveness on the backside of the building. And we don't intend to put we've got that LA Fitness sign right above it, so we're not going to paint the LA Fitness on the graphic itself. That graphic can also be replaced as wear and tear and weather creates the need for it. So that's something we're flexible to. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Have you used that type of marketing before? I mean, it's not really marketing, but call it a graphic, call it a mural, call it a sign.
Yeah.
Have you used it on other LA Fitnesses in other cities?
Yeah, we have. It's been pretty well accepted by most of the cities around. I know Moreno Valley has it, but...
And how have those other cities defined that graphic? Is it a graphic, a mural, artwork, or a sign?
It's basically a graphic,
Yeah, okay.
artwork, yeah, not a sign.
Are they all facing the freeway, or?
Well, some of them are, some of them aren't. I think down on the Target, there's a graphic on the back of that one. I think that's facing the freeway. But I think the ones in Moreno Valley are kind of wrap around the building, and actually there's some graphics on the front entry of the building as well.
Thanks, sir.
Welcome.
Appreciate it. Madam Clerk, if you would please indulge me, I'd like to call Ms. Miller back to the podium for the first speaker.
And she is the speaker who's also put in a slip.
Excellent. Ms. Miller? I already did.
Was I first on the list? I don't think so. For what profiteth a man if he gain the whole world but lose his only soul? Matthew 16:26. Are we trading our souls for more buildings in Menifee that are the high price of convenience? Menifee is internally bleeding from too much traffic and pollution. No new off or on ramps will repair the amount of traffic that threatens the quality of life in Menifee. Tonight's final approval is LA Fitness, a hotel and a gas station at the corner of Newport and Antelope. The cars pouring out of MSJC every time the class period changes, and the junior high in the afternoon, and the long-distance job exit and return will never be controlled by a new Cloverleaf interchange if more shopping centers are built. The current interchange is one of the larger sizes and can't do the job. If 2 more track housing areas, Cinnamon and Fleming, are planned, plus Menifee Lakes, plus movie theaters, office buildings, more Audie Murphy, then the new interchange will be similar to Los Angeles's 405 and 101, which we don't want to live near. Another gas station is not needed. They're all up and down Newport Road. Then connect the dots from city to city, plus more traffic from new development in Marietta and Paris will flood the area. If we can achieve a California moratorium on building, we would help decrease the drought, the water drain on the aquifers, the traffic, the slipping quality of K through 12 education, the levels of greenhouse gases emitted by cars and concrete. It is about citizens expressing their vision for Menifee and their vote, which from 27 people signing this petition in 3 hours says they cannot tolerate any structures that will bring in more traffic. I will give the petition to Ms. Bennett. It takes them 30 minutes sometimes to cross the bridge. To try to walk across 215 is engulfing with fuming pollution. This isn't about what individuals want. The earth is not their footstool. If you don't have enough infrastructure for your lifestyle, then move back from where you came. The rural ambience of the area is gone and will only become worse with every blade of dirt that is turned. It is about the earth's ability to habitat the shelter that your lifestyle is threatening. Can you envision a motel hotel sign glaring over I-215, shining into the homes on the east side? The traffic increasing the noise and accident levels. The increased sirens will further destroy the native sounds and aesthetic beauty of the area. Many of the citizens of Menifee do not live here for this image. The developer is so arrogant to think that it is already permitted, and Muir Fields Development LLC can put on the orange skirt around the property. Come on, Menifee, find them because they put up that development marking before the property is even.
Ms. Miller, I'm sorry, that's your time. Thank you.
And your EIR is out of date.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Madam Clerk, do we have any other public speakers on this matter?
No, sir.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, sir, I've just received one.
Thank you. I have to turn in these.
Rochelle Sterling.
Speaker, please.
Rochelle Sterling.
I haven't yet been able to do enough research on this project, but just based on what I'm hearing so far, I do have concerns. If I saw it correctly, you're rezoning from residential to commercial. I don't know how you were managed to do a mitigated neg deck on this and find no impact. So I will be very interested to see the documents on this project. I actually would like to meet with whoever in planning I need to meet with. I want to review the entire file on this project. I do see concerns with this project and don't know how you could possibly have a mitigated neg deck with the traffic differential between residential and this type of commercial. So I don't know if this is just being pushed through. The other thing is the gentleman who spoke about the diff and the TUMF, I don't think it's really wise to be asking those sort of questions. You're approving, it gives the impression that you're approving this project based solely upon the fees that are coming into the city. So you need to be very careful in the questions that you ask in a public meeting that is broadcast publicly, particularly when you have sensitive projects that can be subject to litigation. The other thing is the graphic issue. I don't know if your city attorney is capable of opining on this issue, but if it is deemed to be a work of art, there are all sorts of implications associated with that and legal protections associated with designating it as a work of art. So I would recommend that you look at that very closely, because you will be setting a precedent for other building, and there are protections in place that can prohibit you from making any alteration to that art. So I will be looking at this. I don't know if I'll work with you, Mr. Brady, but I want to pull the entire file on this project. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Those are all the speakers that have turned in slips.
Would the applicant like to come back up and close out the testimony?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Larry Markham once again. I will address Ms. Sterling's comment that she just made. It is not a rezone from residential to commercial. This is part of the original Menifee Lakes specific plan. This property has been zoned commercial since 1984, as I recall. We have been in process on this particular project since 2004. We received our original approvals in late 2009. And then reapproved those about 4 years later. And so it has been in process for that basically over 10 years at this juncture. So it is not a rezone, and the environmental has been done on 2 different occasions on the project, in addition to the original environmental impact report and additional updates to the specific the Menifee Lake specific plan over the years. It is a specific plan amendment for basically one land use, which is LA Fitness. With regard to the comments on traffic, the traffic study has analyzed the traffic both for the existing case and the anticipated cumulative projects, and the mitigation measures have found to be adequate. We have will-serve letters from Eastern Municipal Water District for both sewer and water. And that traffic study did, in fact, take into account the Mount San Jacinto campus traffic. We also have, as I said, this property has been zoned commercial since 1984, long before the city incorporated, and quite a bit before several of the surrounding properties were developed. We are governed by the Mount Palomar lighting ordinance. We do have conditions that we cannot have light spillage onto adjacent properties, and that will be complied with. And if I understand the comment, the orange fencing around the property is the erosion control measures that are required to be put in place pursuant to the Clean Water Act and the Water Quality Management Plan and Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan. As part of the initial grading that was done for the service station component of the site, which is already approved. So with that, I think that is everything. Happy to answer any more questions. Like I say, we have our entire team here to answer questions should the council so desire.
Thank you. Are there any other questions of council? Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate your time and everybody who spoke. At this time, I'll close the public hearing. Time 8:52. We're inside the rail. And before we go further and discuss, these items have to be taken one at a time. These can't be adopted on balance.
That's correct, Mayor, is particularly the ordinances, which by law need to be read by title.
Okay, thank you. So where are we at, gentlemen, with these matters in the Menifee Lakes Plaza project? Mr. Leesmeyer.
The reason I asked about the TUMP and DIF is I understand that Newport Road is fully funded at this point. This project coming after the fact, I'm just curious what happens with the money that this project would pay into those kitties should
Mr. Johnson.
when it come online.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, the TUMP, as you know, is a regional program. Those funds go into the regional program. We do have other projects on the regional TUMP list. Newport was ranked #1. It is fully funded, but we still have Scott. Mr. Smith has been working diligently to get Holland Road Overpass on that list. He is 99% sure. Should we call it that? Should we call it 100%? Should we say it's on the list? How far do you want me to go? 99% on the list. We have McCall, and we have some other infrastructure needs that are ranked, and then we obviously apply for that funding when there's a call for funding. So they don't necessarily stay here, the funding, all that we collect. In fact, being the sixth fastest growing city in the state, second in Riverside County, a lot of our TUMP funds are going to fund other projects. But if you recall, Temecula, Moreno Valley, Corona, Beaumont, banning, or not Beaumont actually, my mistake, banning those areas that were growing fast, their funds went to other areas too. So it is a regional program, goes into a pot. We then, Jonathan and I fight for that money, and then it comes to the executive committee and you end up fighting for it for us as well. So.
And then the local diff.
Local diff stays here.
So, okay.
Development impact fees stay here with the city.
Good.
If there's no further discussion at this time, Mr. August, do you have anything? Mr. Denver? I'll entertain a motion to adopt resolution number 15-422.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. August. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember August.
Aye.
Councilmember Leesmeyer.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Denver. Mayor Mann.
Aye.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to introduce ordinance number 2015-164 approving the specific plan and amendment?
So moved.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Mayor, I apologize. The entire ordinance has to be read by title. I'd be happy to do it if you'd like me to.
Okay.
Not just the title.
Let the clerk.
Ordinance number 2015-164, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Menifee, California, approving specific plan amendment number 2012-115, amending the Menifee Village specific plan.
Motion to introduce.
So moved.
Second by
Second.
Mr. Leesmeyer. Roll call vote.
Thank you. Councilmember Leesmeyer.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Denver. Councilmember August.
Aye.
Mayor Mann.
Aye.
Thank you.
And read title of the next ordinance.
Yes, sir, thank you. Ordinance number 2015-165, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Menifee, California, approving change of zone number 2014-206, amending the City of Menifee zoning ordinance for the Menifee Village specific plan.
So moved.
Second.
I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem Denver. Councilmember August. Councilmember Leesmeyer.
Aye.
Mayor Mann.
Aye.
Thank you.
And a motion to adopt resolution number 15-423 approving the plot plan. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember August.
Aye.
Councilmember Leesmeyer. Mayor Pro Tem Denver. And Mayor Mann.
Aye.
Thank
And-
you.
And as to the request of staff for direction from the council with respect to the graphic piece, where's the council at with that? We want to move forward with that and then ask staff and the applicant to work out whatever solution is best for the city?
Well, if you're asking my opinion of the sign.
No, that's not what I'm asking for, your direction to staff on the matter, so that they can come back and tell us give us a recommendation.
Yeah, I would be in favor of that.
Okay?
You're fine.
Mr. August seconds, and is there any objection?
What I think you're saying is that we want we're all in favor of artwork, we're less in favor of the sign.
It's however staff and the applicant define it and bring it back to us as a condition of approval.
Okay.
And so hearing no dissension on that, unanimous consent for that direction. Do you have what you need, Mr. Brady? Okay. On to agenda item 11.2, the next public hearing for community development block grants, substantial amendments. And Mr. Johnson, do we have a staff report on that?
We do, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'm going to send it over to Robert Lennox, your Community Services Director, for the balance of the item.
Thank you, City Manager. Good evening, Mayor and Council. We'll keep it brief. I know the hour is getting late. The item before you is public hearing for the substantial amendment of the Community Development Block Grant, also known as CDBG, fiscal years 2012 to 13, 13 to 14, and 14 to 15 annual action plans. For the balance of the item, though, I'd like to turn it over to our resident expert, Community Services Zone Management Analyst, Margarita Cornejo, to present it.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council members. As Community Services Director Lennox said, I have a brief presentation for tonight's public hearing. The request of Council is that we conduct a public hearing relating to a substantial amendment to the City of Menifee's Community Development Block Grant Program specific to program years 2012-13, 2013-14, and 2014-15. The purpose of this substantial amendment is to formally reprogram or reallocate funds that were previously assigned to existing prior year projects or programs into the current year's 2014-15 annual action plan. So pursuant to the city's adopted citizens participation plan, a substantial amendment has been prepared, noticed, and made available for review and public comment with a notice going on January 19th for a 30-day period. The draft substantial amendment itself was also made available at the local libraries and the community centers for anybody interested in reviewing it, as well as available upon request from staff. As stated, the proposed substantial amendment will be reallocating or reprogramming funds from various projects and programs included in the respective annual action plans into projects and programs included in the current 2014-15 annual action plan. So the following slide summarizes the existing projects that are being reprogrammed. Majority of them, like the planning, administration, and the public services, are leftover unused funds that are now being reprogrammed, as well as 2 other projects. One was completed and one is no longer in an eligible target area. So the amendment total is for $112,099 reallocated from 2012 and 2013 to the 2014-15. These $112,000 will specifically go in the form of $22,000 for ADA ramp accessibility projects in the Sun City area, and another $90,000 for the Encanto Drive resurfacing project that is being worked on, and specifically also for ramp improvements. So tonight's recommended action is for Council to conduct a public hearing, adopt a resolution approving the substantial amendment to the 2012, 13, 14, and 14-15 annual action plans, and authorize staff with submitting substantial amendments to HUD. At this point, if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you very much for your report. Council, do we have any questions of staff? Mr. Denver?
On this $90,000 for the Encanto Drive resurfacing, and it says ramps improvements projects. Is this in addition to, or is this replacing the money given to the city for the Encanto Drive resurfacing by the apartments there on that corner?
Mr. Johnson?
Sir, it's in addition to, and it allows us to continue the project further south down Encanto.
So did I understand that the portion of the road in front of the apartments that's all beat up from the project is being taken care of by that developer?
Correct. There's a diff agreement with the developer, and those diff funds will stay with that project, and we're adding these funds to that project to make it a better, longer stretch of project.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Mr. Denver?
Actually, I do. There was a discussion 100 years ago about $2 million that we were putting into resurfacing of roads. How does this relate to those dollars?
Thank you for the question. It doesn't relate to those dollars at all, with the exception that there are additional dollars to that. So they're not taking the place of, we're adding to.
So this is part of the pavement management plan, but it's also a condition of approval for the developer who built the apartments, and this $90,000 is just going towards extending further south what the developer was required to do.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Conejo. Appreciate your report. Thank you very much, Mr. Lennox. I'll open the public hearing. Thank you very much.
Oh.
Appreciate it. Time 9:03. I'll open the public hearing. Madam Clerk, was this properly noticed?
Yes, Your
Have
Honor.
we received any correspondence on the matter?
Not that is not included in your packet.
Thank you. Do we have any public testimony on this?
No, sir.
Very well. I'll close the public hearing at time 9:04. And gentlemen, this seems to be, as presented by staff, a good thing, reprogramming dollars that were not utilized before and for other areas. Is there any discussion?
The only discussion I had is regarding the portion in Quail Valley for the fire hall. That was actually supposed to have been allocated for what exactly? Do we know?
Could you go back to the slide?
It was a resurfacing project, and I believe those funds came from a different source.
This is for
So
what,
they were unused funds.
parking lot or what?
Parking lot resurface,
Got it.
yes.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay. If you're good, were you going to move to adopt the resolution?
Get this microphone out of the way. I will make a motion to adopt Resolution 15-424, approving the substantial amendment to Menifee's annual action plans.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second?
Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember August.
Aye.
Councilmember Lee Smyer.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Denver, and Mayor Mann.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much, staff. Well done. Thank you for your presentations and helping us get through these matters tonight. We have no discussion items this evening. On to City Attorney report.
No report, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Melching. Mr. Johnson, City Manager report.
No report out tonight, sir. Thank you.
Very well. Do we have any future agenda requests from council members? Mr. Denver.
Things have changed in Menifee over the last 6 years, and when we first started the city of Menifee, in my opinion, having to do with lack of employees and opinions of council people who were on the committee at that time, we had a reactive code enforcement control system, and it still is in effect today. Basically, unless somebody, if code enforcement drives by a violation, they do not do anything about it unless somebody reports it to the city. I think things have changed. I think we have grown up a lot since then, and I think we've gotten more code enforcement people. I think our staff is bigger, maybe not big enough, but bigger. What I'd like to do is to give, if I can get a second, to give a little direction to the city to investigate our efforts at moving into proactive code enforcement and come back to us with, do we have enough people? What is the realities of that? Do we want more people? And come in with some sort of a report in short order.
If I could just one-up you on that.
Okay.
Could we even possibly form an ad hoc committee to take a couple of us?
I
and take
think
it
an
back
ad
and
hoc
talk about it?
committee, and unfortunately, if that would help, I'm in favor of that.
Well, let me be the fly in the ointment. Great idea. I support it, but why don't we just let the existing Public Safety Committee deal with it? Code enforcement is kind of well, it's not kind of, it's a quasi-public safety. That's you, Mr. Denver, and you, Mr. August.
We don't do
Mr.
too
Johnson,
good.
but before we do that, though, I mean, I don't want to, we don't want to direct staff that's going to be overburdening in any way. Do you already have a plan for something such as this in terms of adding staff, vehicles, et cetera, that we're not aware of yet?
Or do we need to add staff vehicles that we're not aware of?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, it's a little difficult to talk about. Do we need to add staff? Absolutely. Do we need to figure out where we need to add those staff? Absolutely. Would I work on priorities based on what you feel our needs are? Yes. So if I'm directed to increase our code enforcement department, that would be at the expense of every other department that would need help. We all need help in all departments. I think what I'm hearing from you is you would like me to bring back a report soon, as in very soon, since our budget is coming up, as to what we would possibly need to change from a reactive to a proactive code enforcement division, what that staff might look like. There are ways to get vehicles. AQMD funding comes every year. We've been very successful using those fundings for our programs, so I think the vehicle situation would be okay. But we have added one code enforcement officer since we incorporated. We did add a code enforcement technician, so there's really a team of 4 people there, which quite frankly is not enough for nearly 50 square miles. So a bit of an analysis could come back to you, and that could be done in short order.
So there's at least 2 of us up here that want that to go forward. So let's plan on bringing that back at some point. If you guys would consider, we've got the legacy workshop coming up. We've got a couple other things coming up. So if you would give them some more time to come back and present that, maybe consistent, maybe before the budget development process with us, or maybe as part of the budget development process, whatever you think's best from a staff standpoint to fulfill the direction.
Let me say my 2 cents worth in on that. I'm not trying to push too hard here. I simply want to, you asked, Mr. City Manager, you asked that you felt that the City Council was, had given instruction before to be reactive. And I'm trying to say to you things have changed. I think you'll find that the majority want to be proactive. You can't just, you can do that as a psychological activity, telling the people who presently exist, be proactive, don't be reactive. You can go that far, but there's consequences. And so I'm trying to be sensitive to you and to the city and say, how do we work this all in?
Well, the first order of business is to get it on the agenda so we can talk about it further. So let's get out of the discussion of the item itself, and we'll get it on the agenda, and let's bring it back. Mr. Leesmeyer, you're up next.
Yeah, I was approached by the Quail Valley Community Group, Quail Valley Environmental Coalition, regarding their desire to present Mr. Ben Wick with a plaque. They had asked if that could be done at a city council meeting. I understand that, you know, he being a representative of the water district as well as a founding member of that organization, I wanted to ask the council if that was something that we could do here or if we should push that off to Quebec.
I support that. I support that.
So what? It's great.
Okay, unanimous direction. Mr. Ben Wick, former water director for the Elsinore Valley Water District, gets a plaque for his service from the city of Menifee on the Quail Valley Environmental Coalition. Okay, Mr. August.
I have nothing.
All right, and I have nothing either. So we have a future thing here for, I'm sorry, I can't even talk tonight. As requested by Mr. Denver and seconded by Mr. Leesmeyer, staff to bring back at a future meeting agenda item for a reactive code enforcement versus reactive versus proactive code enforcement agenda item, and possible adding staff. Is that correct? Is that right?
To bring back an agenda item, I was just hoping that in addition to that, that the city sees that things have changed having to do with reactive versus proactive opinions of the council, too.
I think we're saying the same thing, so we can do, yeah. Mr. August.
I just want to say one thing. I don't want to let anything slide by here because that's a very complex and sensitive subject, the difference between proactive and reactive. And to say, you know, for you to say somebody, Cullen McNear, one of our code enforcement officers, is going to drive, excuse me, sir?
No.
Yeah, and it's, I just want a discussion on it, that's all.
I agree.
It's a complex
So do I.
issue. Okay.
So
agree.
the direction remains a future agenda item on the topic so that we can properly discuss it in the public forum.
Sure.
Okay, it looks like we're at the end of our agenda. If there's nothing further, then we are adjourned.